Praise the Lord. We are here this morning for our Empowerment Sunday, and our topic this morning is diabetes, the risks, management, and intermediate fasting. Let me introduce my brethren here who are here to educate us concerning what is diabetes, how we should manage it, the risk factors, and everything that we needed to know concerning diabetes. On my right here, I have Dr. Noye Neje. She has been a family practitioner for the past 12 years. She has a doctorate degree in psych. She is married to Dr. Chidi Neje, and they are blessed with 5 children. Can you please help me welcome her? Thank you. I have here Dr. Taiwo Talabi. He has been a physician for the past 17 years. He has just finished his residency in Mehari College, and he's now doing his chief residency. He's married to his beautiful wife, Sister Jumoke, and they are blessed with 2 children. Please help me welcome Dr. Talabi. So as our topic implies, diabetes. Anybody can answer the question, what is diabetes?
Okay, I think that's a good question, Jack. What is diabetes? I know to make it easy for everyone to understand, we know that we all eat, and when we eat, your body has to break down the food into glucose, right? And the body has systems in place where it makes sure that the blood sugar is not too high, it's not too low, so it stays within a safe range. So when the blood sugar is so high blood sugar, that's what we're talking about in diabetes.
Do you have anything to say, my sister?
I do agree with him. Diabetes is when the body is not able to regulate because there's excessive glucose in the body, and it's hard for the body to regulate it, and so the high stays high and unable to go low.
Praise the Lord. So, my next question is, what are the risks of type 2 diabetes? Because we have type 1 diabetes and we have type 2 diabetes. But we are dealing mainly with type 2 diabetes this morning. We will talk about type 1 diabetes later. So what are the risk factors of type 2 diabetes?
So the risk factors you look at, number 1 is being pre-diabetic. Most times we don't know when we're pre-diabetic unless you go for your annual physical. When your A1C is above 6, it's a concern. Although abnormal goes from 7, but we want to start talking about 6, even 5.5, they start raising the alarm, although it's not pre-diabetic. That's 1. 2, obesity, overweight. We start with overweight when the BMI is greater than 25, and when it's obesity is greater than 30, that's a concern. You talk about family history, genetics, age, when you're greater than 45, although some people pick up diabetes at a younger age. You also talk about history of hypertension. That's a new research that we just heard about, saying that hypertension is a concern. My colleague can go ahead and add to that.
Yes, basically, like she said, but the risk factors are just some things that we could, for type 2. As she mentioned, type 2 diabetes is more has to do with the fact that there's an organ of the system that produces your pancreas. I don't want to go into details, but pancreas produces insulin. Insulin helps you control your blood sugar level. And so what happens is that in type 2 diabetes, the body may be overwhelmed by the amount of sugar that's in the body, right? So even the insulin that the body is not producing is not enough. And the risk factors, like you said, being on the big side, obesity, your diet comes into it, all the things we eat that gives us tons of sugar. Even family factors that she mentioned too. There's family history of diabetes that are most likely that you're gonna have that too. And those are the main things for that.
I would like to add to When you don't exercise, less physical activity, it's very, very important you engage in physical activities. If you are to walk around your neighborhood, it's something that will help you. Because without physical activity, all that you eat will accumulate, and that's why the weight issue start coming up. And if you are a woman, when you are pregnant, you have diabetes during your pregnancy, because there is a way they check it and it's positive, then you need to be careful as you grow older, especially when you are getting to the age of 45 above. You need to watch it. Then if you give birth to a baby, that a very big baby, you know, your baby is weighing more than they're supposed to weigh, just big babies is a sign that you have to watch it, because there's possibility that you may have diabetes in future. So those are things we need to be very, very careful about.
Let me add something to that. You'll be so surprised how much psychiatry affects the human body. Stress is a big factor. We look at stress and we think it's a small thing. It's not. A lot of times, think about it. When you're stressed, you binge eat. You do what we call emotional eating. And sometimes you find yourself, when you're stressed, you're depressed. According to American Psychiatry Association, there's a big correlation between depression and diabetes. So stress needs to be watched. If you can't handle it, step away, because it adds up. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, what I have to add to the risks of diabetes is that when you are black, African American, Africans, we are more prone to diabetes. So you have to watch it too and know where you come from and be able to take care of that. Thank you. Another point I want us to talk about, we've known what is diabetes and the signs and, what are the signs and symptoms of diabetes?
So the signs and symptoms you're looking at are pretty much a frequent urination, frequent thirst. You notice frequent hunger, weakness, wounds that are hard to go away. You have to pay attention to it.
Just like like if you walk back to what we said diabetes is, it just simply means that what you have high blood sugar, and so the symptoms are usually related to that. One of the things you're going to see is that you're going to be urinating a lot, because your urine has a high load of sugar, right? And so once you have sugar in it, it's going to pull out water with it, right? And so you're pulling out water, you're peeing, and so the body's going to recognize that you're losing a lot of water. So what does the body do? It's going to tell you to drink water. So you're going to be drinking a lot of water too because of that. And some people kind of lose weight with that, because the sugar that you're losing is calories, so you lose weight. Thing is that like all the symptoms we've mentioned for diabetes, those are just expected symptoms, but we have to have in the back of mind that some people don't produce the symptoms that you expect. And so usually those kind of people, which I see a lot, is that they come to the hospital, then we do some tests for them. Then we see that blood sugar is high. They will say, hey, the sugar is high. Start ask questions. Why is the sugar high? And sorry that. So why is the sugar high? So we kind of like work it out. So the fact that you don't have symptoms that we expect in diabetes does not necessarily mean that you don't have diabetes. You know, that's why we always say that you have to go to your healthcare provider so that they can work you up, and that way, you know, they can do. Just know it's not an absolute rule that you need to have those symptoms for you to have diabetes. Some people go on undiagnosed with diabetes.
Praise the Lord. You said, so most of the time, like you said, you are asymptomatic. You don't show signs. When you start showing signs of urinating, excessive thirst, you want to drink water all the time, it shows that it's advanced. You need to start getting treatment. This is not when it has started, but you didn't know. But when you start having all these symptoms, you get tired easily, you are always having headache that you cannot explain, then you need to check yourself out. Most of us, especially from where we come from, we don't believe in doing yearly physical. Even Daddy Gio encourage now that people should go for yearly physical. You need to check yourself out. You need to go to the doctor. And mostly, you are not being charged for, if I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected, you are not charged for yearly physical. It's something that insurance pay for. It's free. You need to check all these things out. And if you don't have insurance, there are certain hospitals like you can go to, like Multi-Walker and all that. You can go to Multi-Walker. They will do all this. Like, remember when I didn't have insurance? That was where I was going to. And that was when I discovered that I was hypertensive, because I came in from Nigeria with high blood pressure of 140/90. And they said in Nigeria, it's okay. There was no problem about that. But it was when I got here, the woman looked at me and said, who told you it's okay? And immediately she placed me on blood pressure medication. I have never taken blood pressure medication before. That was my first time. So it's very, very important that we go for medical checkup. I don't know if there is anybody that have a question at this time before we continue. Any question? Praise the Lord. So, who?
Thank you, sir. That Africans are prone to diabetes. Is there any reason for that? Then I want to ask that in a situation whereby, let's say when someone is pregnant and you notice that you're having high, so is it something that one should be, does it affect the child or the mother later? But when you have the baby, you are normal. But at the time of pregnancy, you notice that your blood sugar is high. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I'll take that question. Yeah, I think the reasons why Africans is that, one, you know that there's almost genetic risks that kind of increases us to having the, diabetes. So that seems to be in African population. Then also, main factor of our diet, we tend to take a lot of high carbohydrate diet, and so that in itself is, you know, I still like my swallows and this eba, but then you need to cut it down so that doesn't become a problem. And also looking at the family that you have, if most of us can walk back and see that, back in the days we didn't have all those new diagnostic materials that we have that to diagnose. Some of our parents actually have diabetes we never knew. So that's what that's another thing. Then to also answer the question about what you just described was. There's something we call gestational diabetes, meaning that during the period of pregnancy, usually after the 20th week, you start having blood sugar so high. Blood sugar, having elevated blood sugar in pregnancy is really in itself not good, because it affects how the fetus, unborn child grows. Makes like what we described. People like that tend to have when you have the baby's on the big side. So the thing is that having that gestational diabetes increases the risk of having subsequent type 2 diabetes later. That's why for that kind of woman that has had gestational diabetes during the course of pregnancy, you expect that woman should follow up with a primary care provider to make sure that, one, like we mentioned something about A1C during the period, it's just more like A1C, just like a guide to know if it just answers 3 questions basically, meaning what? Are you diabetic? There's a certain number to look at. Next question is, are you pre-diabetic? Meaning that, are you close to being diabetic? There's also a range that we'll look at. So for those kind of women, you need to follow them to be sure that that risk itself does not go up.
Thank you. Any of you can answer this question? How can we manage diabetes?
Okay. First of all, diet is number one. Lifestyle modification. And when I say lifestyle modification, I'm referring to cut the carbs down, keep it down, and do more protein, vegetables, certain fruits, not all fruits. And then you talk about exercise, at least 3 times a week. Sedentary lifestyle will definitely increase your risk. So you want to avoid that. And then medication, of course, which we hate. it's a big, it's a part of the treatment of, diabetes. That hopefully we don't get to that. But with lifestyle modification, you can actually avert getting to the medication. Unfortunately, medication most of the time is the way to go, in addition to the lifestyle modification.
Yeah, just to add to that, usually when patients come in and we manage diabetes, the first question we ask is that, what's the driving factor for this diabetes? Why do you have the diabetes? For some people, it's lifestyle, it's what you eat and all that. So we try to control that, what you eat, identify the kind of food that you take that increases your blood sugar level. And we tend not to try to start you on medication immediately. We try to do lifestyle, but also what drives that decision making is more of the A1C level. How high is it? If it's so high, definitely you have to start your medication. And the goal of that medication is simply to bring down your A1C level, to reduce the complications that come as a result of having that prolonged period of high blood sugar, and just to do things. And I think it's best not to manage diabetes on your own. You need to have a primary care provider to work with you, because there are some things that even when you come to the hospital, there's some things we watch out for, which we need to manage. And so some complications that come with diabetes, which we'll talk about later, but the main thing is that you need the individual to recognize the problem, to be on board with the plans in place, to work with a physician on where they're at now, where they need to be, what steps they have to play, and it's always constant evaluating. Some people may start with medication. You see how the numbers are, then you tailor it over. So, okay, I think you're fine. We'll address the things contributing to the diabetes. So there's no one person is managed the same way.
Praise the Lord. Mm-hmm. I was speaking to a friend who is an Indian. He said in their diet, if you don't eat rice a day, then you are a poor person. I was wondering, looking at the statistics you are giving us, that African Americans have higher diabetes percentages. What's happening to those people there? Do they have a better gene than us?
I'll answer that. So basically, the Indian culture is a very hardworking one, not to say that we're not. But those people, they rarely stay at a single place. They eat, but they're constantly moving, they're constantly working, they're constantly doing one thing or the other, physical exercise. So with physical exercise, you can actually revert diabetes.
Yeah, just to add to what she said, the diabetes is multifactorial, and so you have to look at this way. Simple thing, I like making it simple. It's a balance between your intake and your output, meaning you eat. What are you doing to burn out whatever is coming in? So you're eating, you're physically active. Most people that eat a lot and they have a high, how would I put it? I don't want to use metabolic rate, rate of breakdown of food product. They may not have this problem because as soon as it's coming in, you're constantly active, and so you're not. But when you're eating those kind of high-level carbohydrates, calories, and you're just inactive, you're sitting down, or you tend to eat late, which a lot of us do, by 9 p.m., you're eating within 30 minutes, 1 hour, you go to sleep. The question is, all that food you've taken in, how long has the body has to process it to break it down? What happens? Everything's just going to go to storage. And you wake up the next day and you repeat the cycle 1 day, 2 days, before you know you've gained so much calories. Now your pancreas, your kidney has to fight to control all that glucose load you've given over a long period of time. And so, there's so many angles you can look at it, but it's more of a balance of what you eat and how active you are. And again, another thing that most of us is that, we are not the same we were 20 years ago. The rate at which a child is physically active, the way the cells in the child break down food is faster than an adult. And so that's why even as you grow older, you tend to gain weight more than someone that's young because you're not as active. And so we have to recognize that even like someone like me, I love my swallows. I could sit down, my wife knows, I could sit down and eat 8 wraps of food. You wouldn't know because I'll start with 2, so you wouldn't know, then I'll give me 1. So when you come, you think I'm still on the same lane. Well, that's not the truth. But now, I can try that, I get easy because I'm not, systems have changed, and so we need to recognize that.
Praise the Lord. I decided to go to management before I come to the complications, because I want you to know that you don't want to know the complications of diabetes. It's not a good one. All these things that we're supposed to do as management, if we can do them, then it won't lead us to the complications. I want to see, can you tell us what are the complications of diabetes?
Yeah, let me just take that. So the complication of diabetes is more driven by the high blood sugar that has been in the system for a long period of time. So I'll relate you to things we can see. Let's start with our eyes, right? You see a lot of diabetes it affects the eye, the retina, the center in the eye, and so people start losing their sight over a long period of time. So I'll go systematically. So in the eyes, so let's talk to you about your heart. You know, some people are at risk, it increases the risk of having stroke, heart attack, simply because normally when you have a heart attack, right, your body should be able to give you signals that it's your heart rate. But what happens in diabetes is that those signs are not there. Reason because diabetes also affects your nerves. That's why you find that someone, your nerves mean that what? Your ability to feel sensation. So someone that has diabetes could be walking around, bump his leg, hit their leg on something, and not feel the sensation. A normal person should feel that and say, oh, I hit my leg. So that happening in diabetes, what happens is that they have injury to their foot that they don't recognize. They don't know it's there because that sensation is gone. And with that, what will happen is that there's increased risk of infection there. So imagine you bumped your leg, you got infected, you don't know. Then with diabetes, it also causes what we call poor wound healing, meaning that you have a wound there. It's going to take a very long time to heal. And so all these complications leads to, that's why you find that some people with diabetes, that they had their foot, their arm amputated because the blood supply to that leg is gone, the sensation to that leg is gone. They have constant infection, so you're constantly treating them. And so the best thing is to address infection, that kind of thing, just to amputate them. The other complication that arises with diabetes is that the kidney, over time, they tend to have some reduced kidney functions, so they tend to have like a kidney failure, and sometimes some people, when the kidney is not working well, you have to help the kidney. And so one way of doing that is that they have to do what we call dialysis. So you find a lot of people that dialysis just meaning that all the function of the kidney helps to exchange, waste product is not there. And so to avoid all that buildup of waste product in the body, you kind of like have to get an external machine for them to dialyze maybe once or twice. So the complications are it affects all body system. And the best way is just avoid having diabetes and start management early. And hopefully all those things can be reversed. Not all the complications can be reversed, but I think it's better managed.
Also, to add to what he said, with diabetes, you notice, like he said, with infections, a lot of fungi, a lot of gum disease, you notice sexual dysfunction, erectile issues. So even in treatment, when you take the medication, some of them have the side effects that affects your sexual function. So like we said earlier, it's best to avoid. Prevention is better than cure.
Thank you. Somebody has a question?
So we've talked about management, and I feel like a factor that a lot of us don't really talk about is how sodium has a stronger effect, because we consume a lot of sodium in just the rice we eat alone, as like we put salt on everything. Can you talk about the factor of sodium on diabetes?
Okay, usually there's an interrelationship between once you have diabetes, there's also an increased risk of having they call it high blood pressure, hypertension. And so the effect of what sodium does is that when you take in a lot of salt products, is that what salt in itself attracts water to itself, right? So imagine you're taking salt, your bloodstream has sodium in it. The sodium itself pulls water in it. That means your blood volume goes up, meaning that your heart that helps to pump blood has to work at a higher pressure to keep that blood up. That's one of the reasons why we say that sodium reduces your sodium intake. And so if you're someone that is hypertensive, one of the things apart from taking a blood pressure medication, it's like, hey, try to reduce your salt intake because it just counter effects whatever goal we are achieving with your blood pressure medications.
Can you have any?
So we understand that weight loss actually improves your prognosis for diabetes. So my question is in context of, for those who are not able to exercise, they've been going to the route of probably taking medications like Mounjaro, like Ozempic. So what's your take on that?
I'll take that. So I believe so much in preventative actions. You know, intermittent fasting is a very good approach. The 16-8 rule works. That means in a whole day, fast for 16, eat for 8. During that 8, try to avoid high carb, try to avoid things that are not healthy. Now, your body gets used to it. Every single pound you lose counts. And you wouldn't have to get to the level of Ozempic, Mounjaro. If you start on time to avoid this thing, it's all about motivation, focus, stay on task. If you do that lifestyle modification, you won't have to get there.
Just to add to what you said, I understand your question about that question about taking all those, because those medications were designed for diabetic people, because one of the things it does is that it causes weight loss, which is part of it, and so people use it off-label to address weight loss. But the thing is that there's no medication you take into the body that doesn't have a side effect, and so you need to be walking, or emphasize that you need to walk into the healthcare provider, your doctor, to know, okay, you're taking this medication. Because even when you're taking this medication, there's some routine tests we normally do that, okay, you've been on this medication for a while, because there's no medication you take that doesn't have side effects. It's just that some people may not have the side effect, right? So you can't just on your own say, oh, I'm trying to lose weight. Oh, I had this medication causes weight loss. Oh, I'm going to start taking it on your own. You can't just do that, you know, because you are not trained, or you might not even know how to even recognize the things that you should know. I know a lot of us read a lot of information from the internet, Google and all that, but Google is not a doctor, you know. You can't, you can just pull up data from everywhere. And the truth of the matter is, every data set that you get, I can use the same data set to interpret something different. I can use the same data. It all depends on how I'm trying to drive the point home. And so your AI, artificial intelligence, whatever, Google, cannot distinguish that, really. You still need a human factor to be able to look at this. And that's why I always say people don't self-medicate. Always have a physician looking into what you're doing.
You have a question? Okay.
Praise the Lord. Thank you very much. So relating to education, so how do we break some of this myth relating to what actually causes, you know, diabetes? For example, most people probably think the reason why people have diabetes is you eat a lot of sugar. They don't really think, okay, you know, carbs and, you know, whatnot. So how do we break them? How do we, you know, break them? I mean, one of the ways is what we're doing right now, but just, you know, society, you know, in general, how do we work towards, you know, getting more educated on that part?
Yeah, I think if you ask me, is that I know we all eat and all. There's no one rule that fits everything. So my personal take would be that have a primary care provider to work with you, because you could be walking around here and not know you have diabetes. A healthcare provider will be the best person to kind of like evaluate the risk, you know, talk to you, ask questions. And even though what we're doing here is good, like taking the kids, and I think I want to emphasize is that, you know, like, we know that in America now, obesity is going up, right? You know, obesity in itself increases the risk of having diabetes too, because you're putting a lot of weight. I don't want to go into all the fine details, but the thing is that you're making it harder for the insulin to itself to work. There's something we call insulin resistance that comes with you know, putting on weight. That means that what? Resistance, just to blame and test, mean that, okay, if I'm supposed to go to this cup and pick it up, and that's my action. But when I get there, there's something preventing me from picking the cup. That's like a resistance. And so the insulin that should be breaking down the sugar in our body, sometimes has some resistance that comes in place by you being on the big side. Yeah, there's some studies that have shown that. So there's no hard and fast rule. The main thing is just education, like what we're doing here, and constantly having a healthcare provider, because like an adult, at least one time in a year, your primary care physician would have screened you for diabetes. I would have checked your A1C to say, okay, ma'am, this is your number, it's safe, keep doing what you're doing, or this is your number, we don't want it climbing up, so let's work on it, or this is your number, you may not have symptoms now, just based on this number, you are diabetic, and we need to start working on that to bring that number down. And so that's what I would say.
I have a question concerning what our brother Femi asked, because I've seen people looking for an easy way out concerning the issue of this weight loss. And 99%, even including nurses, physicians, doctors, physicians' assistants, going for all these metabolic shots and all that will help them to lose weight. And trust me, they are losing it. But is there any kind of study that shows that they are safe for lost weight? Because so many people are doing it.
I'll answer that. So it goes back to the same thing I talk about. And you worry about sustainability. You use the Ozempic for a period of time, the weight drops. Are you able to sustain that weight loss? That's the question. It goes back to lifestyle modification. We're all going round and round, same thing, prevention. Even if you want to use it, say for instance, you're in a situation where, life happens, right? And this is the only way out. That's fine. Go ahead and go for it. But let there be a plan for sustainability.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that too, I think the driving factor you mentioned is like, as long as you're working and you have an inactive or sedentary lifestyle, you need to design something about our workplace. You don't even have to go to the gym to work out, It could be like during your lunch break, you're taking a walk down. It could be that you stop using the elevator and start using the staircase every day. You are guaranteed, maybe your staircase has about 5 floors you need to get to. If you do that constantly every day, that is, whether you like it or not, you are doing some form of activity. You're gonna lose weight. Some of us are in a house, we love music. You can play your music and be dancing. It's part of, design something. You have kids, pick up your kids, they say, come here. Let me, 1, 2, they help you. Even my kids remind me, Dad, you've not done your push-up today. And I'm like, okay. Like, can I sit on your back? I say, okay. Dad, you only did 5 yesterday. You need to go up. You design something around what you do. It's you don't necessarily have to get a gym membership. And some of us, we drive cars. Back home in Nigeria, most of us would have, chasing bus and all that. Those are everyday activity. Whether you like it or not, you are going to lose weight. But now we drive cars very easy, even coming to church. Sometimes, we park too close to the door because we don't. Sometimes you can park away, It's, little things add up. And like 30 minutes of activity every day, over 5 days, you're guaranteed that you have to do it. And so, like she mentioned about sustainability, we need to constantly ask ourselves, what are we doing every day that we can add to our structured lifestyle to be active? Once you can do that, it becomes part of what you do every day. Then you don't have to think outside the box. You know whether you like it or not, you're going to do it. And it just becomes a way of life.
Thank you. So in conclusion, I want you to, she's mentioned it when she was giving one of the answers concerning intermediate fasting, how important fasting is to our life.
Intermittent fasting is good in the sense that, like I do that a lot. I'm sure a lot of you notice. It may not be ideal for everyone. It just means that I try not to eat in the morning. Maybe my first meal will be around 12. I drink a lot of water, so that way, what happens is that I'm forcing my body, because take it this way, we all have storage in our body, right? So when there's no food there, the body kind of breaks down those stores, fat stores and all that, to try to produce some form of energy for you. And so you're just forcing the body to like say, hey, I'm not eating now. all those things you've stored up, start breaking them down and provide them as a source of food, depending on the time I take something in. But you don't have to do it for a long period of time, just like 5-6 hours in a day, or some people say 8 hours, it all depends. But we're all different on how we tolerate not eating. And so that intermittent fasting also helps, because this story is just more trying to force your body to pull up from its reserves and break down those things. Because if not, a lot of us can, because every time you eat, there are two things you have to understand. The body will take what it needs for the day, depending on your level of activity. If you have more of someone that's very active, it takes all the energy it needs. And any extra is going to storage. And that's where the problem comes. So if you're eating a lot, you're not active, all this extra is going to get turned to storage. And so what happens is you gain a lot of weight. And so intermittent fasting is just trying to force all that food out from storage to break it down. And that's just how I can just summarize that.
You want to summarize, Toma?
In summary, I'll say moderation is key. Moderation is key. When you see that jollof rice, take a little bit. Don't eat all of it. I say this to myself, I say this to everyone. Life is a struggle, it's a process. Every day is a new day. In all things, let's give praise to God and continue to trust Him.
Thank you.
Just to add one more thing, I'm sorry, is that the summary of everything here is that a lot of us have families, we want to live long, we want to be able to take care of them, and so we're advocating that you should be more, we should not be reactive, we should be proactive in our health, take care of your health. If you've not seen a primary care provider, get in touch with your doctor, and work hard. Don't wait for things to happen, because most of the time when things already happen, in some cases you can reverse, in some you can't, and so we need to be very, observant of our health.
Okay. All I want to say is that if the church gave us opportunity to fast, please, let's take it. Let's take it. Some of us will say, I need to take my medication. We give excuses. We don't. So I believe that those periods that they call for fasting is an opportunity for us to take care of our health. The Lord will help you. God bless you all. Thank you.